Well, let's pivot to Morning Joe, hard pivot to Morning Joe. We have to roll this clip of them every day now. It's sort of like reality television, which is always what Morning Joe actually, I think, has some of the best production quality in television. Like, it's so casual. They understand why people watch TV, even if the content is terrible. I think the production is generally kind of compelling at Morning Joe because it's like reality television. Mm-hmm. And that's what we are seeing play out on the show this week, as they are just absolutely playing up the attention they've received for kissing the ring at Mar-a-Lago.
Or the attention they're not getting, too,
yes,
from their viewers.
It's a little bit of both. So let's roll this clip from yesterday's edition of Morning Joe.
Yesterday, I saw for the first time what a massive disconnect there was between social media and the real world. Because we were flooded with phone calls from people all day, literally around the world. Very positive, very supportive, going, I understand what you did, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But once in a while, I would get a text or a call from someone and go, oh, man, I hope you're doing okay. And I call him back and I go, well, Eddie Glaude was one of them. I go, Eddie, are you on Twitter? And he goes, I am. I go, okay, well, I'm not. So we've had a good day. Mika just had a wonderful event, and it's fantastic.
They're just like leaning into each other like a teepee.
Our desk is too far apart. Can't quite.
And we don't have any Starbucks like that. They always have Starbucks.
Well, yeah, they're sponsored there.
We have Sagar's weird African coffee.
Yeah, but we also got our own faces on these mugs.
We have our own faces.
Which you should go buy in the mug store that we got over there.
Buy the mugs. That was the point of this segment, was to sell mugs.
And so, yeah, obviously this comes after they went down to Mar-a-Lago, kissed the ring. Mm-hmm. Their audience recoiled because their audience has been told for the last 8 years that this is Hitler reincarnated.
By them.
Yeah, by them. Told by them. And so now they're saying, well, we better go ahead and kind of kiss and make up, and hey, he won, so we should all be friends. And that just doesn't clash. Like, if those two things just do not work together. And so their audience is absolutely livid. Their friends who have their cell phone numbers think it's cool. And so from Mika and Joe's perspective, that shows that Twitter is not real life.
Which, by the way, it's the year of our Lord 2024. They're just coming to this realization. They cover politics every single day.
In this case, I think they're wrong. I think the people in their cell phones are not real life.
Yes.
Twitter is actually much closer to real life in this sense. Than the fact that all of their friends around the country are like, yeah, sure, this is working for you.
Right.
Let's roll, well, not roll, but put up C2 here. This is an interesting kind of way that they're responding to this. Our friend of the show, Aaron Rupar, who has some irrational hatred of me that I've never quite figured out.
Of you? I didn't know that.
It's quite bizarre.
Many such cases.
Many such cases. So he writes, Morning Joe has turned off replies to tweets and hasn't been posting clips of the show. The trip to Mar-a-Lago not going well.
This is peak Rupar. He noticed before anyone that Morning Joe wasn't posting clips. Yeah.
And I agree with Rupar here. This is a fair observation.
Yeah.
If you're a show that is afraid to be seen, that doesn't bode well, because your job as a show is to be seen.
Yeah. So let's put the next element up on the screen, just continuing on with this theme. This is also resistance. Ron Filipkowski. If Trump has them that intimidated that they need to retire, an MSNBC host piled on CNN earlier this year, but their code of silence on this is gross. Have some courage and integrity. Is that too much to ask, or are you just too comfortable? He was responding to this George Conway tweet you see on your screen, where Brian Stelter reported that according to two sources with direct knowledge, Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski were credibly concerned that they could face governmental and legal harassment from the incoming Trump administration. George Conway quote tweets that. This Twitter drama is positively middle school-esque, and says, sadly, Brian's reporting is correct. Over the past week, I heard from two entirely separate, very reliable sources with some vivid detail that they are absolutely terrified of Trump. Entirely separate, very reliable sources. I wonder if those sources were Joe and Mika, or if they were people like Joe and Mika who are absolutely terrified of Trump. But George Conway, who goes on MSNBC, would be in a position to know what the mindset is of people in that orbit, saying basically Joe and Mika went down to Mar-a-Lago because they don't want to face backlash, legal backlash, potentially from a Trump administration. Now, Ron Filipkowski and Jen Rubin, another person who goes on MSNBC, have been apoplectic about this, about Joe and Mika going to kiss the ring. And indeed, it appears that the audience, to the point you made, is as well. So let's put C4 up on the screen. This is a report from the Daily Beast. The ratings are falling. So the headline is Morning Joe ratings fall after Trump meeting announcement. Nielsen data showed a drop in viewers after the 6 a.m. hour. So,
and what's fascinating about that is that the show goes from 6 to 10, God bless them. And obviously, because most of the country is still asleep at 6 a.m., the audience for the program
builds
throughout the day.
Yeah.
And then falls kind of toward the, after people have, things to do. But what the Mediaite records that they obtained show is that they go on and they say, hey, everybody, guess what? Cool news. We went down to Mar-a-Lago. Trump's okay. Their audience collapsed. 30% of those in the 25 to 54 demographic had stopped watching by the next hour.
That's significant.
Yeah, because normally
Absolutely.
you're going up, and now you're losing 38%.
And 38% is a lot.
Yeah, I'm not a math major, but that's a lot. And so clearly what happened was people were like, are you effing kidding me?
Right.
Click.
Right.
Not dealing with this.
Right.
Like if you want your kind of resistance content from the people who've been giving it to you for 8 years, and now all of a sudden they're telling you that actually, which, we're not going to beat up their audience, but throughout the 2016 campaign, it was quite obvious that Mika and Joe were like longtime friends of Donald Trump and loved the fact that he was running because it was incredible for the ratings. He was constantly calling in and flirting with them.
Literally, yes.
Literally flirting with them. And then he shocked them by winning, and then their relationship soured. And so here we are.
Right. And they say they did all of this because in their sanctimonious way, it was absolutely worth it, quote, absolutely worth it to get Donald Trump to come out and make a statement saying he supports a free and fair press. And that is essential. This is their argument, is that it was worth their time to go kiss the ring because they got him to say nice things about the press, and that's just absolutely essential to the work that they've done to support the media here.
And maybe you agree with everything that they're saying, but what is clear is that they're only saying it out of fear,
right?
And because things have not gone their way. And to me, they should just then step down. Like if you are acting out of fear rather than out of your true, genuine impulses that you want to share with the audience, let somebody else do the gig.
Well, interestingly, Comcast officially announced that it plans to spin off NBC Universal cable channels into a separate publicly traded company.
That's official now?
Yeah, that broke. Crystal texted it this morning.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So I mean, that's an interesting.
Talk about what that means.
It means an interesting future ahead of MSNBC because the NBC News and MSNBC tension seems to be higher than it ever really has been in their history. By the way, the MS and NBC, do you know what it stands for?
Microsoft.
Microsoft NBC.
Yeah.
Microsoft NBC. It's sad that Microsoft didn't just buy MSNBC back because we would be in for the same Joe and Mika bullshit. Because that's the real problem with MSNBC is that they have spent years, like you said, they wanted it to be known. They were very close to Donald Trump. They had access to power. They always thrived on that access to power. They broadcast from the middle of Manhattan in 30 Rock, and they want you to know that. They want it to be clear that they are talking to the movers and the shakers and that they're friends with them. And that's what you see when they're in their quarter zips drinking their Starbucks, is this is just friends chatting, and you never really get much like disruptive content, even when they frame sort of things like, oh, maybe this wokeness stuff has gone a little bit too far, as disruptive.
Right.
So now it's fascinating to see what will happen with MSNBC. Does it become just the network of people like who tune in for George Conway and Jen Rubin and the niche partisan content, Nicole Wallace, whatever else? Jen Psaki, is it going to become that network, or is it still going to try to be a news network? I mean, I think it's a pretty interesting question if you're the executives looking at the future.
Yeah, and basically you're just going for people over 45 and 50 at this point. Like the idea that you're going to get any new people under that age to start watching cable news, I think at this point, most smart people recognize is a fantasy. So then it's like, well, okay, well, how many of those people are Democrats and independent-leaning Democrats or Democratic-leaning independents? And can you convince cable companies to continue carrying you and paying you? Because that's, for people that don't understand, the way that cable companies make money is not mostly through the advertising. It's from your cable bill that you pay to the cable company. A piece of that goes to Fox or MSNBC or CNN, and the way that they maintain that is by maintaining their relevance. That people say, if I'm getting cable, I want these cable news channels. And you'll have fights where people will say, I don't want to have to pay for Fox, make Fox a la carte, or I don't want to have to pay for CNN or whatever.
Right.
But other people are like, I'm paying for basic cable, I want the news.
Right.
Like that, what else am I doing? What else do I want here? I can get the rest of it anywhere else. So as long as there's a minimum threshold number of people who want MSNBC as part of their cable package, and that is understood through surveys of their users and angry phone calls, then the cable companies will keep paying them these very lucrative amounts of money. Because think about how much money you pay every month for cable. If you still get cable, it's a lot.
Yeah.
And a huge chunk of that then goes back to these networks.
Well, and it's why there's this incentive to be nicheified. And so that's what Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski are really trying, they're popping right now in a very uncomfortable way, this audience, this niche audience that they've cultivated in a bubble, which is, listen, I don't think niche audiences are necessarily a bad thing. I think they're really dangerous in politics, but they're cool in like music, and they're cool in all kinds of like different cultural spheres. I think it's great that we have a media environment where, Shane Smith can come back and do his show for Vice, and like there's some type of audience for it. But, this is also really dangerous if it's creating political bubbles that people, for example, Tom Cotton publishes an op-ed in the New York Times, because the New York Times builds this not monoculture audience over the course of the Trump administration, but niche audience of resistance people. Because they publish this Tom Cotton op-ed, people cancel their subscriptions. Or Washington Post, same thing. People are canceling their subscriptions because the Post made a decision to go back to the pre-1976 standard of not endorsing a presidential candidate because they saw their business failing. It's actually a really fascinating and interesting decision that these executives have to make, is whether they want to reach the broadest audience possible or corner a niche. And you can do really well. Like Stephen Colbert, least funny, most partisan guy in late night over the course of the Trump administration. He was the top rated for most of the Trump administration because people tune in over and over again when a lot of people who don't work in politics, like they just want the comfort food. And if MSNBC was giving people comfort food, it wasn't really doing news, unless it was maybe some connection to NBC News, some of their reporters coming on, whatever. So as soon as you start dishing out vegetables, you're going to lose your audience, because that's not why they patronize your product anymore. And so that's a huge, huge conflict for them going forward. And they're at a fork in the road. They can decide to do news or do comfort food. So best of luck to them.
Hey, if you liked that video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to Breaking Points.
If you want to see the rest of Counterpoints, go to breakingpoints.com to become a premium member and get the full uncut show every morning in your inbox and on Spotify.